Hello, everybody. This is Barbara Fields. As we get started here, I'll introduce myself. I'm Executive Director of Association for Global New Thought. That is the co-founder and project director for the Gandhi King Season for Nonviolence, which in 2012 is entering its 15th year. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you on a little tour of just the fundamentals of the website. So just to start with the basics before we do that, there is a very good chance that many of you have already gone to this website and pressed the button that says Start Here. This is a logical place to start. And this is the way that you tell us that you want to be involved, and in what way do you want to be involved. Because there are a number of ways. You can already be leading an active task force, or you'd like to join one in your area but not take leadership, or you'd like to start a new one, or you would just have time to attend events and activities but you don't really have time to do more than that, or you would just like to participate informally with a small group of friends or your family. So if you or anyone else that you know wants to be involved, that's how you would let us know. Because if you're not in our communications loop, then we can't reach out to you and supply you with the tools that you need. The next important thing is a networking tool, and it's under this button over here, and it's called Find a Task Force. And say, for example, you're in. Let me see, somebody's in, let's see if we've got, no, that's West Virginia. Here's Virginia, for example. I think that was John.
Yes, it was.
So if we click on Virginia, for example, we'll see everyone in Virginia who's involved in one or more of the Seasons for Peace and Nonviolence, along with contact information about how you can reach out to those people. In order, if they're close enough, within a reasonable radius of where you are, you can connect with these people and make your initiative bigger and better, rather than reinventing the wheel and starting over again. So this task force directory works like that for everyone, and it's a very useful tool and very easy to use. Naturally, we have quite a few in California. California people, they're very busy. But once again, this is an excellent way of finding out if there's already activity in your area and connecting with people. Sometimes you find that someone's been active last year, but they don't have a big group this year, but they would love to co-lead a group with you. So there's all kinds of creative ways of using the directory. It's also true, someone brought up on our call the other day, that if you go to other countries and you'd like to hold some kind of a dialogue initiative during the Season for Nonviolence and invite people from other countries to join you on a tool like this conference call, you would have the option to do something like that. You could just reach out to the people in as many other countries or cities as you want to and do an online study course together, for example, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Or have your own set of dialogue questions that you'd like to bring up for Season this year. This really puts you in contact with your friends who are working on the same mission all over the planet, and it really, really works quite well. I also want to let you know that if you're not on the directory or you want to be, then you would use this link. It says to update your listing, you click here. And if you're not, it tells you if you're not already in the directory, please use the sign-in form, and then it'll bring you right to the form. But you're already there, and say that your information is outdated. Then you use this form in order to tell us that it's updated. A next general resource that I think everybody should pay a lot of attention to is this organizing task force guide. It gives you everything in Season for Nonviolence is customizable because you're the leaders, and so it's not a question of just doing what we tell you to do. We didn't even ask that the first year we started 15 years ago. This is about you preparing yourself to make creative decisions that are appropriate for what you're trying to accomplish in your community. But the organizing guide is kind of a step-by-step general template of what kinds of things will really help you get organized in forming your task forces. What kind of people should you be looking for? What kind of roles will they play? It talks to you about how to find other local programs and projects that are already ongoing that have to do with this topic of nonviolence in your community, and how to reach out and get in touch with them. It gives you some examples, which also we can link to other examples of what kinds of events people are planning and what kinds of events you can plan. It tells you how you can connect with other groups, how you can take action in the community through your local media, and very importantly, reporting and communicating how you can submit your events to our headquarters, because if we don't know about your events, then we can't turn them around that same week and distribute information about what you're doing to all the other task forces. So the way that you do that is this button called Submit Events. I'll give you an example. Like if you submit events to us, then we're likely to put your events either in task force news, because then everybody uses these pages in order to find out what everybody else is doing. Season's starting on the 30th, so everything's not up there yet. Or upcoming events, and we'll constantly update this depending on what you send us, so that it can be kind of a one-stop shopping when people want to know what's going on around the country, the world, or in their own community. See, there's a lot already in the planning. And this final important button is called Submit Events. All you have to do is give us some information about you and your event, and we'll make sure that it gets posted. And sometimes you can submit reports, images, or videos, or something like that. Sometimes we may create a Facebook invite page. Sometimes we might include your report in our weekly newsletter. So it's really, really important that you remember that this button is here. Okay? The one thing I want to talk about, introducing this to your community and also some of the programs that we have to offer. So I'm going to go home to the Season for Nonviolence page. Sometimes when you get together and you're introducing your community, if all you have to do is, if you have a projector, any kind of a projector, you can hook up your projector to the internet, and you can just show the video overview, because it's a nice way to introduce the project and not leave anything out before you just start talking about it, because that chances are that will be the rest of your presentation. So you can use some of the multimedia tools to do that. You can use the video overview that we just saw at the beginning, or you can press on this multimedia link. And we also have here a Season for Nonviolence history video that's a little longer. It's a longer video that gives real video information about what's been going on the past many years with Season for Nonviolence. So that's always a good one to show. And we also have an excellent Season for Nonviolence PowerPoint presentation in our multimedia resources. And that's a downloadable file, and I'm not going to do that now, but it just downloads as a PowerPoint, and then you can change it or use it as it is, but it's a very good way of moving your community through an introduction. And I think one of the coolest things we added this year is, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that amazing, wonderful person and singer named Faith Rivera, but they wrote an original song for the Gandhi King Peace Train in 2007, and it's the one that's the soundtrack behind the video that we just saw. And so they wrote this for the Season for Nonviolence, and so we have a downloadable link to that song that you can use if you need a theme song, which is something that we never thought to offer before, but for presentations it can be really helpful. So let's go to Foundation Documents. This again is, as leaders, the task that you have in front of you in many cases is you have to do some research so that you can figure out what your community is looking to you to lead them through. And that requires a certain amount of just searching through the great documents that we've created on this site in a pretty well organized manner, so that you can figure out what you need to use and which aren't so applicable for this year. Obviously, the official reports of the general history, the vision, our statement of purpose, the leadership for Season for Nonviolence, how that falls together, and we'd certainly like everyone to acknowledge that in their public presentations, because we have a very illustrious board of advisors for the last 15 years. There's a fact sheet, so that if you're trying to talk about Season in a nutshell, we just have some talking points for you. This is a good way of approaching the press, too. Once again, more endorsements from world leaders are written out if you want to include that in a meeting packet of materials, for example. And sometimes if you're approaching sponsorship or looking to corporations or other private parties, that's a nice thing to have in a press packet. But also the content principles, principles of nonviolence from Gandhi, King, and other leaders. Once again, this is just a kind of a one-stop shopping for the basics. And in other places on the website, you can drill down deeper into the specifics, but sometimes you just want to start at the top level. Quotes about nonviolence, those are useful for making brochures, and if you want to do daily affirmations of your own. We've just picked out some really great ones. This is very helpful too, a glossary of nonviolence terms. Good if you're trying to lead a class or just really study the basics of nonviolent social change. Good resource. And then, of course, we have a lot of different declarations and appeals that we have been affiliated with over the years and speak directly to our common goals. So those are foundation documents. I didn't go over all of them. The two probably most important buttons on this page are programs and resources. When I press programs, it takes you to an index that's separated nicely, kind of who would want to do these programs. Programs for everyone, programs for schools, programs that work best in communities, programs that work well in churches. Now, what I want to call attention to is that if you press on any one of these links, it takes you directly to that program. It's not just a suggestion. It gives you all the materials, and all the materials are free. So, for example, the program 64 Ways in 64 Days, we have compiled so many versions of that for so many purposes over the years, including a Spanish language version for teens and for the general public, different affirmations, all based on the 64 ways and days that groups have been doing for 15 years and sending in their modifications so that we can collectively create tools rather than just having to rely on one single source without anyone else's input, which I think is a very good model. For example, we've got pre-written public service announcements for radio or for internet. And if you could convince a local radio station to give you 30 seconds a day, you can supply them with the short message. And we've had many groups have success with that. Our Peace Mandala tool is excellent for meditation and groups that want to work together in contemplative community. This is just another version of our 64 ways and days. But if you click on any word of 64 words, it'll give you a quotation, an affirmation, and a practice. And sometimes people use this once a day. They do it in the workplace. They take time out at 10 o'clock and they look at it together and have a moment. And sometimes churches use this in their sanctuary, projecting it on a Wednesday evening or on a Sunday. Has some nice background music too. And back to programs. If you look at all the curriculum and contests and programs and activities that we have listed under the program index for schools, we actually have programs for training nonviolence to youth that comes in at every level, from real young kids all the way up to college level. If you go to the next important button, which is resources, this is a fantastic program index that's organized in roughly the same way. These aren't the programs, these are the resources that you can look through in order to add content to your programs. For example, under schools we have college level resources, we have the best practices of UNESCO in conflict resolution, and a wonderful peace building toolkit you can download from the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace Studies. And the Nonviolence Heroes for schools, those are for middle-aged school kids, so you can dive in at any level. Let's see. Let's press just for the fun of it on logos and artwork. So here, if you press on any of these links, you can get any of the artwork that's ready for the web because it's a different resolution. Or you can get images that you can download that are ready for print. That's a higher resolution, and those look really nice on banners and so on. Or if you just want to use something for stationery, or you're making postcards or something else, this is where you go to get whatever you need in terms of artwork. We already went over multimedia. Links is another good page to be aware of because it's just more resources. All of these are lots and lots of links to Gandhi and King sites, general conflict resolution and peace building sites, and then specifically much more about Gandhi and King and Chavez. If you want ideas about what to do, you can go to our past events button. And even though we started in 1998, we started using these digital tools in 2001. So you can literally go to any year. You can download a document. And this has been very, very helpful to people because it's not just suggestions for documents, it's actually successful events and activities that people have already done. Oops. And you can, if you get an idea for a program that you think was really exceptional or looks really interesting for your community, you can use the task force directory, the map that we went over in the beginning, and actually find the city and the contact person who was instrumental in planning that event. And one of the commitments that we make as task force leaders is if you get a call from somebody who wants to know how you did it, you help them out, and then it doesn't take so much time and energy to get the event started. This is something that I think could be useful to a lot of people is under task force tools, the press kit. This gives you all kinds of things that you can use for your local task force activities. And so, for example, Pam and Linda, if you're just getting started and you want to introduce this in your community, you're going to need an example of a press release template, for example. And here we've just structured a press release that talks about our event at the UN on February 15th. But you can see that we tell you, if we're not experts in press release writing, but it's easy if somebody tells you, okay, what should this paragraph say, and what should this paragraph say, and what should this paragraph say. Those are the kinds of things that can be useful when you're first starting out. A sample article about the Season for Nonviolence. If, say, your local group wants to know a little bit about every sort of component of the program that's important, or you have a newsletter that's coming out, we've given you a brochure template, which are very nice because you can customize them. Yeah, for example, you can open it up yourself. You can open up the brochure, but these are all customizable. So you put in your own text and the name of your own organization, and then you don't have to reinvent the artwork. That can be very helpful. We also have, we also have a flyer that you can do the same thing with, or a postcard, graphics, PowerPoint presentation, the short video, public service announcements, tips for media. If you feel brave and you're going to go get in touch with television and radio stations or print and internet outlets, it kind of gives you a few tips to get started there. It's not rocket science when you break it down. And sometimes we find that local media is much more receptive to printing a story about what you're doing if they don't have to invent all the resources from the beginning. So if you can even point media to this page, just pick up the URL at the top and say you can find a press release, you can find graphics and fact sheets and a sample article and contact information. If you want to do a story, I'm your local contact. See what you come up with. These are the basic elements, and then call me for an interview. And this is a way of getting local press that we weren't always successful in doing in the beginning because we didn't have a way of getting all these tools to them, and it's a lot of work for local task forces to do when they're just starting. The same thing is true of funding tools. This is very easy, but a kind of important section of the website. If you're going to a funder of any level, if they're corporate or if they're just a person or a nonprofit in the community, we've provided a couple of sample letters that kind of give you a template for what you can send to them if you're looking for support. And if you put a little proposal kit together for a funder, a lot of times they like this piece, the questions and answers piece. And you'll see here that you can print this out, but it's all one document that you can print out in several pages. And any of these questions that a funder might want to ask, what is the purpose? How will the goals be achieved? Is it a local campaign? How will the money be spent? How will success be measured? If you go to any of those links, we've already come up with the possibilities for how to answer the questions. And this is very valuable when you're seeking sponsorship or funding for a big program in your community. Benefits of sponsorship. Some of it is very high level. Some of it is, just if you can get $1,000 to put on an event. What you might put in a sponsorship package if you've got a grant proposal to write. So that's been a nice tool for people. In terms of our proclamations, I think we now have 50 states that have issued either in terms of a state Senate resolution. We haven't listed them all here, but we've suggested some language if you want to bring a proclamation to your mayor or to the state Senate or to your governor, because we've been very successful in all states and many, many cities getting people to proclaim a season for nonviolence. Well, the Colorado Senate resolution, they've done this actually several years in a row, and they've taken, those kinds of things take this work to a whole new level. So if not us, then who? If we don't bring it to their attention and knock on somebody's door and bother them a little bit, who's going to do it, and how are things going to change? So anyway, we've got you started with language, so that's the first step. We're almost getting toward the end of our time. Meeting templates down here under Task Force Tools, that can be very helpful to people, whether they're just doing it for the first time or whether they need to get up and running quickly. For example, you can customize any of these forms, and like, for example, a task force participation form. We have a form all set to go so that you can figure out who's your volunteers and get them to, bring forms to your meeting and then they fill them out. A sign-in card, a follow-up interest form, even a little template for name tags. A participant pledge. Sometimes it's nice that if you establish a spiritual, contemplative, from the inside out commitment to this work. Many of the people who are connected with spiritual communities on this call and in our task force field understand that establishing commitments and relationships and a kind of contemplative space that is the foundation for this work is the difference between whether this work becomes sustainable for the long run or whether people just burn out because they've already got to take care of the family and 2 jobs and so much other work to do. So things like participant pledges can be helpful in that way. We've even got a sample meeting agenda. It's not going to work in every case, but you can customize it, and it saves you time because you don't have to be the one that starts from scratch. I mean, whenever anybody hands me a template, I'm just eternally grateful because it saves me a couple hours of my time. Or a sample meeting invitation for how, if you want to reach out to others in your community, gives you some ideas about what you might want to say based on the experiences of people who have done it a couple of different ways, and they say to us, well, last year when we reached out, we didn't get many people, but this year we did it differently and it worked well. So you want to benefit by the experiences. As Porfirio had pointed out, it's a new model, and so we want to be mindful of the new paradigm that we're using at the same time we're very focused on outcomes, because in this case the process is fully as important as the outcome. That's what evolution is. So I think I've given you a pretty good foundation. At least you know how much work you have to do now. So I think I might just want to wind up by I want to tell you that you're all invited to the United Nations event on February 15th. If you or any of the students or people in your area think you might be interested in attending, because it's a really fabulous experience. This will be our 15th year there. All you need to do is get in touch with me so I can give you instructions about how to register. It's a free event, but of course getting to New York isn't. Yeah, the kids chose, the students chose the topic this year, Global Peace Through Social Media. There's an app for that. On the 15th of February.
Okay.
Reverend Michael's done it many years in a row, but now we're getting the younger ones involved. At any point that you need any assistance or support, be sure and let us know, because that's one of our major focuses for the next 2 months. So that's what we're here for. Okay, Happy New Year. Have a wonderful weekend.